The market is flooded with too many mini PCs, but we're starting to get more of these interesting models finally again, and that's why I have a mini PC video. It's a model from GMKtec, and it's called the EVO X1, powered by an AMD APU, which is the Ryzen Ai 9, the 370HX, and that gives us 12 cores, 24 threads, a lot of power for such a small little sized mini PC, and most importantly, Radeon 890M graphics. It comes with 32 gigabytes of RAM or 64 and up to 2 terabytes of storage, and included in the box, we get a 120 watt power supply, we get some paperwork, power cable, HDMI cable, and a vertical stand if you wanted to mount it upright. Now, I like how this is a proper mini PC size. It is small, it's compact. Some of the other mini PCs, I couldn't even really call them mini PCs because they're more like small form factor PCs. So at the front here, we've got USB 4, so that's 40 gigabits per second. Oculink, so that's PCIe 4.0 times 4, which in theory is about 63 gigabits per second. So for external GPUs, it is faster and a lot better than USB 4, and I'll show you in this video. We've got two USB 3.2s, and here 3.5 millimeter headphone jack with the mic support. Now just in here is a little BIOS reset, the CMOS. If you need to reset that, if you messed up, say, the RAM timing settings or some other setting and it didn't boot, just poke a SIM tray tool into that and that will reset it. Our power button with status LED. So vents either side. You can see some of the cooling. So there are two fans in this. And then at the back here, we'll find the other port. So HDMI 2.1, we've got DisplayPort 2.1 and two 2.5 gigabit LAN ports, the barrel connector, so it's not using a different weird kind of connector at all. Kensington lock slot, and then another USB 3.2s there. So for ports, pretty good. I would have liked to have seen an SD card reader on there, but considering the size of it, it's very good. Now to gain access to the internals, I'll show you what you need to do here. So you need to unscrew these little feet. There's 4 of them. They're out of the box, not on tight, so very easy to remove. And so for maintenance, this is going to be a mini PC that you'll be able to clean quite easily. So when you undo those 4, then this just slides out like so. And you can see there the main cooler for the CPU. And this one here at the top is for the SSDs and the RAM. Off camera, I removed the 4 screws on the outside here. So you simply remove that SSD cooler to one side. You can unplug it and completely take that away if you wanted to. So here is our boot drive, and that is a Crucial P3+. I'll show you the speeds of that later in the review. And you can add another SSD. So it's the 22mm by 80 SI PCIe 4.0, and that's good that we have this option. Here is our Wi-Fi card that you could replace if you wanted to do so. And that is a Wi-Fi 6E card, so not Wi-Fi 7. So maybe you want Wi-Fi 7 in the future. Well, that's all you can really upgrade. So SSDs, Wi-Fi, that's it. Because the RAM, well, it's soldered onto the motherboard here. This frame around the outside, it is plastic. It's not metal, so it's not solid. Doesn't have a super high quality feel to it, but all up, not a bad build. The PCB does look good. And I like that it's a nice, small, proper mini PC size as mentioned there. And it's just a shame that we can't upgrade the RAM, but GMKtec does have a 64 gigabyte version of this Ryzen Ai 9, the HX 370, of course, with the 24 threads and it's 12 cores. So getting the 64 gigabyte version, good that we have that option because some brands only offer 32 max. So the power limit setting, I have this set to performance. That's going to give us 65 watts. Balanced, I believe, is about 54, and quiet could be somewhere like 25 or 30. And this I do recommend to set to performance if you're going to be gaming on it. You want to try some gaming, you want the best performance. The trade-off is the fan noise, however, you're going to hear a little bit more of that. So under the graphics configuration, you can go in here and set the buffer size, the UMA frame buffer size. And this is our memory that's dedicated to that Radeon 890M. And I've put it to 8. Now, by default, it's 4. Now, on 8, that's going to give you better minimum frames per second in some games. And I just think it's a better option to have there. Now, we can overclock the RAM, and I have done so. So these are the changes I'll be making, and the results I'll show you in this video are going to be with these settings. So you want to go into this here, which is UMC Common Options. and the LPDDR options. The first one, timing, and accept this little warning here. So if these settings don't take and it doesn't boot, there's that little hole next to the power button. So hit that with a SIM tray tool or a pin, and that's going to reset the CMOS settings here. So it's not dangerous. Anything we're doing in here is going to be perfectly fine. So you want to go into the maximum memory data clock speed. Now I have already selected this. So it's on 7,500 mega transfers. Put that to the 8,000 mega transfers, and you're done in that screen there. However, like I've done with my previous video of this chipset with the Beelink Sir 9, is I went along and I tweaked the memory. Now this is a long couple of days of me just trying to find the absolute best timings that I could get away with passing all error checks. And this will vary from unit to unit. I don't really recommend you do this part, but if you want to get the absolute best performance. Now these values in here, they are hex. So even though this is 16 here, that actually translates into 22 off the top of my head. But you want to go along to our CAS, and this will be on auto. So it would look like that originally. Go along, set that to manual, set that one to 16, and we can also tweak these others here that I have tried. You can give this a go. Now, if the unit doesn't boot within about 55 seconds, that means the memory timings did not take, and you'll have to do the CMOS reset. But I've been able to get away with setting these ones here. So take a screenshot of this or pause the video if you're going to repeat this in your own system, of 10 for those last 3 there, okay? You can see I set them all to manual. Now the last ones, I would not worry about these ones, okay? Don't bother trying to tweak these. I've not really had any luck with them, and they're going to give us almost no benefit whatsoever. So those are the RAM timers you can tweak. Other tweaks, well, there really isn't anything else because we don't have that AMD overclocking menu. There is a setting under, well, you've got secure boot if you want to enable that. It's actually off by default. One more under here would be this is auto boot power on. So if you want to run this as a little server, you're going to run on a switch maybe, then put that onto always on. So when it's got power, it will boot itself up. So it's pretty much self-explanatory. The other settings I would not tweak. So the main one is this: set the power limit setting to performance, and if you want, tweak the RAM, and I would definitely do that, the RAM buffer. Save and exit. Now this model here does ship with Windows 11 Pro, not the home version, and our SSD, it is fast, but not the fastest you can get out of PCIe 4.0. For an included drive, it's good to know that they went with Crucial, so a proper brand here. It will be reliable, and you can at least rely on that too, not failing straight away with some unknown kind of brand. So we have here 24 cores, 24 threads, sorry, and 12 cores. Maximum turbo is 5.1 gigahertz. Intel Wi-Fi 6, the AX200, but you can upgrade this. One of very few things you can upgrade, only that and the SSD, as I showed you with the internals. So it all, pretty much everything we have here checks out, and there was no bloatware pre-installed extra from them, aside from the typical bloat that you do get included with Windows 11 nowadays. Now that RAM overclock, it will take, and I believe all units should be absolutely fine running the 8,000 mega transfers you can see there. And I have 8 gigabytes dedicated to that Radeon 890M. Now, because all the 4K playback files I've been tested out are all fine, I wanted to test out some 8K footage, which is super demanding. Now, these files I've got here from an 8K drone, they are at 160 megabits per second in the 8K resolution. Let's have a look and see how it handles it, because normally choppy on most systems, but it did a fantastic job. The playback is very smooth. Just at the beginning, there are some drop frames, but then it steadies out, and that's 30 frames per second, 8K, that it is decoding the Radeon 890M without any issues. That is amazing performance for such a demanding file. I've been so impressed with this in the performance mode with the 8,000 mega transfer RAM speeds that I went and opened up one of my 8K videos. Now, this video is shot all in 8K, and this is an Adobe Premiere Pro. You'll be able to edit 8K video. Now, I won't say it's going to be super smooth to performance, because it is really demanding on this, even at the quarter playback resolution. 4K, not a problem at all, but let's just have a look. I'll play back some of my video here, and that playback is looking incredibly smooth for integrated graphics. This is normally very choppy. So the 7080M or the older first arc graphics is not going to handle this. It was a choppy, stuttery mess. And we're getting, look at the frames per second, 30, well, it does state 32 at the top. There's a few dips, but we're at 30 frames per second. It's dropping a few now, you can see. But, I mean, it's only 3 or 4 frames per second. You can edit 8K video on the spec of mini PC. I'm starting to see a few more little drops there. But I think that's absolutely phenomenal. So 4K, no problem. Encoding times, however, this is only, well, about 9 minutes long. It will take about 16 minutes to encode this, which I think is fair considering how demanding it is. So being able to do this on integrated graphics and such a tiny mini PC, it's phenomenal. It really is. And when I did show you the BIOS and the RAM tweaks that I did, they are right here. You can see the timings under the best tab here with HW info. So you can see that the TCAS 22, this is down from 26. And I tweaked slightly the RAS to CAS delay. Okay, those have been slightly tweaked there to 16. And that's it. That's the only real change there. But that squeezed some extra performance out of that with the RAM overclock of now running the 8000 mega transfers instead of the 7500. It's given us about a 5% free little boost there. And remember, this is all optional. You don't have to do that. But if you want the absolute best out of this unit, I recommend you do this. Now, the thermals have been fantastic. I've accidentally closed this HW info, but I've been running it for hours before, and I've never seen over 70 degrees Celsius. Now, I will do a little bit of a stress test here, and I'll show you what it's like when it does pull that 65 watts, and absolutely fine. You could even run higher power limits, and it's not really going to be an issue. So stressing this out now, you will see here that it's going to be pulling about 45 watts here under full load. This is from the power package. 65 there, okay? So that's the performance setting in the BIOS. And we're reaching about 9,000 here on the multi-thread performance. And the thermals will get up to, when you're gaming and other things, just below 70 degrees. You hear the fan a lot more in the performance mode. But these thermals are fantastic considering how small it is, what kind of wattage we're pushing through this APU. So I'll give you a sample now of what the fan sounds like now. This is worst case scenario, stressing it out. Well, if you know me, I'm not massive on synthetic benchmarks, but I always do show a few so you can relate and compare this to other units. TimeSpy score here for integrated graphics. This is very good. In fact, one of the highest I've ever seen for this particular chipset. It's because of those RAM tweaks and also overclocking it, and then the power limit being 65 watts on this. So we're getting a graphics score of just 1 over 3,800. That is really good. And the CPU score, excellent too as well. And this again is with the tweaks. Now, if you run this same test, it's going to be very close to just over 4,100. So my little tweaks haven't really changed much. They just increased the graphics score from about 3,600 to 3,800. So it's a minimal little boost, but it's a free boost there. So that's why I do it. Now, we do have the option of running eGPUs with the Oculink, and I did so here with my RTX 4090. And I got a disappointing result. I have seen better in the past out of Oculink with the same GPU. For some reason, the graphics score is only 25,000, and the best I've seen out of this one is almost 38,000 for TimeSpy, and that was with an Intel-powered unit that did have the 13700H, and that was running Oculink from a PCIe slot that I had to M.2 to Oculink. So not the best there, but still so much better. And gaming, for example, it will give quite a bit of a boost. You can go from 80 frames per second in Tomb Raider 4K high settings to then 120 frames per second with this unit. But again, not the fastest I have seen. And I couldn't get USB 4 eGPU to run with my setup. I don't know why, but the port it didn't like it. So this synthetic benchmark, again, Geekbench, very good. Single core score, almost 3,000. And then multi-core score 13,000 points. Great. And this is at the 65 watts with my little tweaks here that I've shown you in this video. So phenomenal performance considering the size of it. And here we have Cinebench that I ran and got an impressive score. Because the cooling is so good, there is no thermal throttling, so you can run this test for 10 minutes, and it is going to give you more or less the same performance that I'm showing you here, which is absolutely solid. That is an excellent score for this chipset because of my tweaks, because of the power limit, and because of the cooling that it has. Just been so damn good. Onto gaming performance, and if you haven't tested out this title, it's very good. I played the first game and it was one of my favorites, and it's Kingdom Come Deliverance, but this is now the sequel. And I find the fight sequences are very, very difficult. And often my timing of block is bad, but this is at 1080p, frame generation is off. I've got none of that fancy stuff in, so no resolution scaling or anything either. And I should get Mutt to actually detect that guy. There we go. And we're getting around 50 frames per second, but I am out here in the open, so this performance is fairly decent. Oh, my timing is so bad here. This guy's got a pretty good sword. I think I might be in a bit of trouble. Cyberpunk, and I want to see the real performance here. So I've used this preset. It's the medium preset, okay? But I don't want any of this resolution scaling stuff. I don't want frame generation, so turn all of that off. So that's why it's saying custom here, but it's 1080p medium settings. Apply that, and we'll see what kind of performance it has. Not a bad result, an average of 39.29, so almost 40 frames per second with no frame generation, no resolution scaling, none of those tricks, 1080p medium settings. Last little game test is The Witcher 3, and this is at 1080p on the low preset. We're getting close to 60 frames per second. I've just seen it go over to about 61, 62, and very playable here at 1080p. This area is one of the more demanding ones, definitely with all the NPCs around, the lights and the shaders and whatnot. And it looks like it's not going to go below 50 frames per second. So great performance here for an eGPU. To get this kind of performance is amazing. The Witcher 3, and I have this set to 1080p, the low preset. We have a low of 51 frames per second. I've seen it get up to 62 frames per second. It's a demanding area of the map. That's why I tested out with all the lights, all the NPCs around. And I think it is faring very well for integrated graphics to be able to run. In this game, yes, it's old, of course, but it still has quite demanding graphics. And this is looking excellent. Testing out Linux Manjaro. This is with the open source drivers, and everything does seem to work. We've got Bluetooth, wireless works, the LAN ports do work, and the performance does seem excellent. Loading in a video here. It's very quick and looks just fine as you'd expect. So great Linux performance here from the EVO X1. All up, this is an excellent mini PC that offers great performance, good thermals. The trade-off is a bit of fan noise, and you've got that great iGPU performance. You can tweak the RAM, which is very good because of the unlocked BIOS. And the only issue I've really run into is that the USB 4 port for me doesn't want to run my eGPU. I'm not too sure what's going on, but that's what's happening with my unit, so I'll report on that. It is an expensive mini PC. For this APU, the prices of them have all gone a little bit ridiculous, if you ask me, for a mini PC. I do remember those days when they would cost 300, 400, maybe 500 US dollars, and the top spec ones being about 600, and now we're over 1,000. You get some amazing performance though as a result. I even managed to edit 8K video, which is fantastic considering how small it is. So it is another one that I think gets a thumbs up. It's a great little unit here from them, and I hope to see more. And good to see that Oculink is included with this if you wanted to run an eGPU and bypass that 40 gigabit per second cap we get with USB 4. So thanks a lot for watching my review here of the GMKtec EVO X1.